Hi, beautiful ladies. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about the glass child and how that plays out with older children, but specifically for the purpose of this video, older daughters in the Black community. So a glass child is a term that is used to describe a child who is or was often overlooked or neglected. A lot of times this has to do with the family dynamics. So sometimes it's the focus being largely based on other siblings. Maybe that other sibling has a disability, or it could just be that the mother, often in the Black community, is overworked. And so the older child is kind of left to take care of the younger siblings, if they do have younger siblings, and that is usually the most common case. It can also happen for only children where, for whatever reason, the father is just not present, and then the mother, she's also maybe not present and she's kind of just doing her own thing. But overall, that child's emotional needs are neglected and overlooked, and they're kind of expected to kind of take care of themselves, if you will, in that capacity. So as a result, the child could have feelings of resentment towards their sibling or their parents or whoever, whatever that family dynamic is, for not receiving enough attention. But then it can also play out as an adult in feeling under pressure to be perfect, to not make any mistakes, because oftentimes the child is criticized for kind of not operating as an adult. Glass children are often seen as like secondary or tertiary parents. And so if that child kind of just automatically doesn't know how to fulfill needs that an adult would kind of know how to, they are often criticized and chastised for that. And so as an adult, that plays out as people pleasing, perfectionism, and things like that in order to avoid further stress in the family. But then outside of the family, it plays out like this as a way to not upset those who are around them, especially romantic partners. It also plays out as being fiercely independent, so not asking for help when they need it, which Black women are kind of notorious for this. The whole strong, independent Black woman moniker primarily stems from this because you felt a greater responsibility at a young age. And so you kind of just continue on that track record as an adult because that's all you've ever known and you don't really know any better. And this can often lead to burnout. It can lead to depression because for various reasons, but it could lead to depression because you feel inadequate. You may feel like you're unsupported. You may feel like people don't love you. Even if people do try to show up for you, you may be prone to dismissing or rejecting that help because you've kind of always been known as the one to help. And so being on the receiving end of support and help is foreign to you and it feels uncomfortable. It kind of feels like you're not deserving of it, or it kind of just feels like you're being selfish if you ask for help, which is another thing that parents will tell you. Oh, you're being selfish if you say things like, I want to be able to go to that party on the weekend, for example. But then your parent may say, oh no, you're being selfish. Like, you know that you need to stay back and look after your younger siblings, type of thing. So that often plays out as you pushing away your own desires in order to appease those who are around you. And obviously this is not fair. As a young person, you really do not get to choose who your family is, unfortunately. And so you kind of have to learn how to navigate your surroundings. If you are a young person who is currently experiencing this, you need to have an exit plan. You can have boundaries. You are not responsible for your younger siblings. Your parents chose to have those children. You did not. So I would recommend to you, especially if you're in high school, to focus on your studies. Okay, do whatever it takes to do well in school, whether that's staying late for extra help, going to the library to study with your friends, whatever, as well as extracurricular activities, so that you will look attractive to colleges and universities who hand out scholarships and go away for school. If mom says, oh, but I need you to stay back and take care of the kids, F them kids. Honestly, those are not your children. You do not have a duty and a responsibility to take care of those kids focus on yourself and your future, because you're going to be really selling yourself short in life and not getting any fulfillment out of it, because you're having to live out your life according to what other people think that your life should look like, and you're having to sacrifice your own dreams and desires to appease other people, which is not fair. You putting yourself first is not selfish. I know that a lot of religious people also have this family dynamic, and they'll kind of use religious scripture to kind of be like, oh, you're being selfish, you must take care of the family. The Bible also says that parents should not provoke their children to wrath. And the Bible also says that the father is responsible for providing for the family. And so if there's not a father in the home providing for the family, making sure that everyone's needs are met, that's not your problem. And it's also not your problem that your mother chose to procreate with a man who couldn't take care of her and her kids. So you owe it to yourself. And if you want to have children of your own in the future, to set up your life in a way that will produce the best possible outcome for you. And that is getting an education, okay? Get an education in a field that will serve you well in the future, whether it's in STEM, medicine, the legal field, pharmacy, whatever it may be. If you don't know what your interests are, reach out to local offices that you may be interested in and ask them if you want to shadow, especially professionals in your community. A lot of them want to give back to young people because a lot of them have similar stories to you, especially in the Black community. And they'll be more than willing to let you shadow, volunteer, get your volunteer hours if you have to. And that's a great way to kind of gauge, I do want to kind of do this, or no, I don't, I'm not interested in this field. Let me pursue other options. Okay. If you are older and you kind of feel as if you still have to take care of your family, for older people, that plays out in paying the Black tax. So that pretty much is this obligation where as soon as you start working, you need to give money to contribute to the household expenses. The same thing applies in what I mentioned previously. You are not responsible for your parents' financial situation. They should have been responsible enough, especially if you live in the West. I know people use racism and being disadvantaged as an excuse. It's not, okay? You are not responsible for their poor choices, and you owe it to yourself and to God, really, to pursue the dreams and desires that have been placed in your heart. Because and I'm taking a religious stance because I know that this appeals to a lot of religious people in particular, when you place people's opinions and expectations over God and what God has told you to do, all you got to do is open up the Bible. If you read the Bible, and you'll see what the story of the talents, for example, and the business owner who gave his servants various talents, and the one who didn't use his talents, he was punished. But the same thing kind of applies to us today, where God will give us many talents, but a lot of us do not use it because we're afraid of what people are going to say, or we hold ourselves back to other people's expectations of us. And then you're basically telling God that this person's opinion, I value it more than what you have told me I should do, God. And you may find that God's like, okay, fine, I'm not going to give you any more good ideas or any more talents because you are not even using the one that I gave you. So what's the point? I will give it to the other person who has tried to execute on the ones that I have given them. So do not make an idol out of other people by placing their value and opinion over what you know within yourself is the right path for you. Especially if that person, you wouldn't trade places with that person, or that person's life is in shambles. Like, why on earth would you ever give that person amount of power? They haven't even sorted out their own life, so they're not even in a position to tell you how to live your life. Stop paying the Black tax. If that means that you need to pack up and move out of the city, out of the state, out of the country, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure your family is going to complain and tell everybody how horrible you are. Oh well, put that money into savings and investing and amplify your life. Because when you are constantly being depleted and drained, you will not have the means and the resources to truly help people who are actually in need if you so feel inclined. Okay, so step away from that poverty shackle and start to pour into your life, and you'll start to see a greater return in your life. And choosing to step away from this glass child label and the black tax label honestly breaks generational curses. It is a curse when roles are reversed, in my opinion. So traditionally, it's the parents, the foreparents who pass on wealth to their children so that they can be greater. They don't have to start from scratch, and they can build off of what their foreparents have laid the foundation. And this is why you see other races, they seem to do well, especially white people and Asians, because they pretty much understand the value of having something to pass on to their children. But in the Black community, for whatever reason, across various cultures and countries, Black people have the opposite, where the parents will kind of just mess up their own lives, but then look to the child to kind of be the one to help be their retirement plan or pass on some sort of wealth to them. That is a reverse. You're going backwards, you're swimming upstream instead of streaming downwards and following the natural order of things. And so you're creating a curse when you do that. And you're cursing yourself and you're binding yourself. So if you're the type of person who fits any of the descriptions that I've mentioned, and you notice that your life is in shambles, you work so hard, you do so well, and still you're not appreciated, or you just are not able to grasp onto and grow wealth, it could be because you are held up in an ancestral covenant and bondage where, because you are having to play the foreparents role, you are no longer in a position to receive the blessings that are owed to you as a birthright. So if you're in a position, not everyone has parents who pass on wealth to them, you are now free from that covenant when you start to pour into yourself and take care of the wealth building that your parents should have passed on to you, and pour it into yourself. So that number one, you are having to make up for what was not given to you. But then number two, you're positioning your four children, if you so choose to have them, to be on the receiving end. And you are fulfilling basically the biblical law, the universal law that was kind of put forward. You're now being obedient to that and fulfilling that role in setting up future generations. And I mention this because a lot of these laws of attraction, they really align with biblical principles. It's really not difficult to amass and create wealth. But because the Black community, honestly, there are a lot of curses in the Black community, Black people as a collective are not able to see it. And so I mention this because God has made it very clear as to how things ought to play out between generations, because he understands that it really doesn't make sense for generation after generation you're having to start from scratch. It makes sense to kind of build a foundation and then iterate from that foundation. So make the next foundation better and better and better over time. This is why you see Jewish people in general, they are very successful and they do well because they understand the importance of lineage and heritage and blessing your children by having something to pass on to your children. The Bible pretty much says, and I think the Torah as well, pretty much says that you are worse than an unbeliever as a man if you do not provide for your family. You're worse than an unbeliever. And so if you're a woman who's aligning yourself with that, with someone who is not in a position to provide, and I don't even mean wealth, just basic necessities to make sure that you're comfortable so that your children do not have to end up being glass children. You as a woman, if you choose to, first of all, align yourself with that, you're cursing yourself. And then you have children from that union, you're cursing your children, because now you have all these dysfunctional family dynamics that you are passing on to your children, and then it manifests as mental health issues because there's simply no synergy in the home, and there's a lot of role reversal. So what I mentioned earlier, being tertiary or secondary parents, and then your children's needs being neglected, and then 20 to 30 years later, your kid is in therapy trying to undo and unlearn the harmful processes that they adopted during their childhood. So if this resonates with you, it's not going to resonate with everyone. I recommend that you practice the art of mothering yourself instead of others. So take care of your own needs first, emotionally and mentally. If it's not going to be in your best interest to do something, don't do it. You know, be gentle on yourself the way that a mother would. Do not criticize yourself, and be quick to detach yourself from people and situations that will cause you harm, the same way that a good loving mother would tell you to do. Prioritize being your own best friend instead of seeking friends for validation, because glass children, because they didn't get that validation from their parents, they end up looking to others, and then you're pretty much always at the mercy of other people, and you're not able to think for yourself, which causes a host of other issues. Learn how to set boundaries. So don't be a parent again to your parents or pay the black tax. You can be there for your younger siblings, you know, to some extent, but do not feel the need, the sole responsibility to take care of them. If you're in a position where you've stepped away and you see that your siblings kind of want to step away as well, but they don't have that support and they're willing to do the work, then you can most definitely help them and say, hey, maybe come move to my city, or you can come live with me and, you know, we can be roommates together. But if your sibling is kind of the one who thinks that mom and dad have done no wrong and it's your responsibility to help them while they do nothing, detach from them and let them figure it out the same way that you did. And, you know, just show yourself some grace. Learn how to take it one day at a time. No one is perfect. Not all of us have had the luxury of being raised in a household where proper family dynamics were displayed. And so it's really not your fault if you were a glass child. But once you have become conscious or aware, or you've heard a message that will challenge those toxic strongholds, it is now your responsibility to do the work to break that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think about this topic, and I will see you in the next video.